Hi, everybody. We're here from CNJ, REIG's podcast. We have with us today somebody that we've known for quite a little bit. He's an awesome real estate person, and he's a great real estate investor. I knew him from the beginning as a wholesaler, and he is at Good Vibes Real Estate
Good Vibes Real Estate Solutions. There we go.
All
Of course. Thank you for having me, guys. How you doing today?
We're doing great. Great. How are you? How are you doing?
Good. I'm good. I'm great. I'm glad to be here. Hopefully I can provide some value for everyone. So,
Awesome.
All right. So let's find out a little bit about you. Can you tell us how you got started?
absolutely. So it's funny. First thing you said was you know me from back as a wholesaler, which I still do wholesale, but that wasn't the beginning of my adventure in real estate. Maybe some of the more older people would remember somebody by the name of Carlton Sheets. No money down. He was up late. If you're up late at night, you couldn't miss an infomercial for his stuff, which I eventually did order, actually at some point in college. That being said, I started my real estate journey. As soon as I got out of college, I'm like, okay, I'm going to buy a house, no money down, that I can rent out. And I found out about something called an FHA loan, 3% down on a single or a 3-family property. And that's what got me started. At the time, that was back in like 99, early 2000. Luckily, it was pretty easy to get money. Right? You go out, get an FHA loan, then you get these 80-20 no money down loans. There's all sorts of crazy loans. So I picked up a 3-family, lived in one unit, rented out the other 2, the normal house hack that everybody does. Enjoyed that for a little while. Added another one, and then I added a 2-family, and that's kind of how I got started. I don't know how far you want me to go into it, and
So
where I'm aligned to get to today. What was that?
What market did you start in?
I actually started in the Connecticut. My first house was in Berlin, Connecticut. I went to the University of Connecticut for pharmacy, and I graduated, and I got my pharmacy license, and I started working as a pharmacist, and I had a decent W-2, and I was able to go out and purchase that first multi. I was renting. I'm like, why am I renting a house? Or renting an apartment, actually. Why am I renting an apartment? Let me buy a house. And that's where I kind of got started. And then around 05, probably 03-ish, a couple years later, I decided to move back home. I grew up in Lower Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and managed everything from afar. I had a management company for a little while. That didn't work out. Then I was doing it myself, and that didn't work out. And then I didn't really want to do it anymore. Got frustrated with it. And long story short, I sold everything. Somewhere around the 2005, I sold all the properties that I had. Made a little chunk of change, decent chunk of change at the time, I would say. And was trying to figure out what I wanted to do next. Like, oh, maybe I should buy stuff in Philly. And then I heard all these horror stories about Philly. And so I actually ended up meeting up with some men in the Mercer County market. Some men you may know, Matt Faircloth, Paul Margaritas, a couple other men. And I met up with them. Like, wow, you know what? It's really not that bad. I live right over the bridge from Trenton. Why not? And I actually got my first property again to purchase in 2010. So I went out and purchased. I found a partner at one of the real estate meetups, local real estate groups. Bought another property in 2010. Boom. Fixed it up. It was complete rehab. Bought another one, and I'm working overnight, and I ended up working overnight in the pharmacy. So I discovered something called podcasts at that time. So I'm sitting there working overnight. I decide one night to listen. I remember it specifically. I was listening to a Sean Terry podcast, and he's talking about how to get a property under contract. I know how to do a contract. Like, this is like, I know how to do this, So I'm listening to his podcast, and I was busy. I was doing the every weekend we had to do the narcotic count to make sure that we weren't missing any drugs. So I'm sitting there doing the narcotic count. So I'm listening to him.
That doesn't sound
And he gets through it. And he's like, he gets into some of the mindset stuff. I'm like, oh, this is pretty good. I started listening to more and more of his podcasts. And what happened for me was it clicked. Like, wow, I could go out and wholesale properties to cover my W-2 income, be in the real estate game full time, and then I can acquire more of the properties I want to acquire. So that's what I did in 2013 or into 2012, early 2013. It was like, okay, I partnered up with Jason Ramos. I don't know if you remember him or not. Partnered up with Jason, and we were working together. We started Good Vibes Real Estate Solutions, which is the wholesaling end of things. And got our first deal under contract, got it sold. Didn't have it closed yet, but got it sold. I'm like, you know what? I'm done. Game over. Left the pharmacy, and started wholesaling. And that's what I was doing for a while. And I was picking up some of the deals. And then it wasn't until about 2016, I said, okay, you know what? I start buying more of these. And I started buying them and buying them and buying them. Up until now, I have a good bit of rentals, and that's the bulk of my income, and I supplement it with wholesaling. Yes. Question.
No, did anybody notice the timeline? He skipped when everybody lost everything in that 2008-9. Did you have your crystal ball somewhere? How did you know that was going to happen? Get rid of it in 2005 and start back in 2010.
So the funny part of it, like it doesn't always work out, right? So I sold everything and I made a good chunk of change, and I decided to go bigger. And I met with somebody at a real estate group and started working with him, and he found this deal down the Jersey Shore. We were going to build these condos, this whole big thing. And I dumped all that money that I made into that, and it fell apart when 2008 came, and all that money got wiped away. So, and I'm not as smart as I look. I got lucky.
All right. So we want to hear about those parts. That's
So that happens too.
Yeah.
So I lost all that money, right? All that money that I made from selling those properties, gone. But I learned a lesson.
An expensive lesson learned.
Expensive lesson.
Lost everything from $500,000 to $3 million to $4.5 million. I found so far. People that and they're the big players, and they're in the games. They've gotten back in, so it didn't scare you. I like it.
Yeah, and I think, and then one of the other things just to kind of put out there, like when I left pharmacy and quit, like most people would say that's like a pretty stupid thing to do. Like you got a full-time job, you're making good money, it's a professional degree, blah blah blah, and I was like, okay, and I was hemming and hawing about it a while, and somebody said to me, he's like, look, it's like you're not going to end up on the street, like you'll figure it out. Like it's not like you're going to, like your whole life's going to fall apart because you quit your job. Like if you need to, you'll find another job. You'll figure it out. Like you have your degree, like just go for it. And I'm glad I did. It's very difficult to do real estate part-time. It's doable, but it's difficult. At least if I want to grow quickly, you can invest slowly and do great. You can buy one house a year. When you're done, ready to retire, you're going to be in a great position. Even if you got to do it for 10 years, think about it. You're going to be retired with 10 houses free and clear, right? That's all you need.
Right.
But like if I really wanted to make full-time income from it, I had to devote time to it. And that's what I decided to do.
Cool. So one thing you brought up when you got your first property in like early 2000s, right? And I remember we bought our house in late 90s, and we refied. I had to refi in 2000. Interest rates were high, right? So today the interest rates are kind of high again, right? And people are nervous about getting into it because they're like, the interest rate. And I always go, well, I bought my house at 10% and had a secondary at 12. There were people that had 18% back in the 80s. And I always tell them, look, if the numbers make sense, and don't worry about the interest, because you can always refi it back out when interest rates drop. Don't hesitate to go out and do real estate just because you think the interest rates are high. Just make sure the numbers work, right?
So
it's relative. If you're cash flowing.
What type of interest rates did you have back then? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was around that. It was like 7%. I don't remember the interest rate as much as I remember the payment, right? Because like I'm fresh out of school, and it was like $1,700 a month,
right?
Yeah,
something like that, with taxes and insurance, like the principal, interest, tax, and insurance. And I remember and I was able to qualify for it because it had extra units, and I could claim some of that as income. So while at the time, I remember the purchase price was like 170 grand. And like, to me, like I just got out of school. I'm like, this is crazy. Right. And, luckily I qualified and I did it. but, I was able to qualify because of the other units,
Right.
and I lived in one. I rented out to a roommate. So I had a roommate that was renting from me. I had somebody on the second floor and somebody on the third floor. So it was good. And it was
So
a good
original
project.
house hacking.
Right.
So-
You were house hacking and you were making cash flow.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So
Yes,
I did hear
exactly.
you also mention about property management and stuff like that. So what is your approach to property management and maintenance, especially for your rental properties now?
Gotcha. So I manage all my properties in-house. I do play a part in that on a day-to-day basis, which normally consists of a 1 hour call, usually at the most half hour or so, but sometimes a half hour to 45-minute call every day at 10 o'clock with my team. So with myself and my partners, we're managing a good bit of units. So that requires a full-time person to answer the phones, field out work orders, call tenants, and that type of thing. Then there's a full-time admin, deal with lease renewals, text messaging, following up with getting a lease renewal signed, texting people like, hey, rent's due, you better pay it. Hey, your rent was due yesterday. You got your late fee. You better pay it. Hey, if you don't give us a payment plan by the 10th, we're going to evict. He handles the evictions, and that type of thing. And then we have a person locally that opens up the mail, scans it so that admin can put all the bills in. And then that person locally also prints all our checks so we can pay our bills.
That is amazing. And so I'm assuming, you have a VA doing, a large portion of that.
Or
Yes. So we have 2 full-time VAs and 1 part-time local person. Not
Understood.
including obviously handymen and contractors, which are just as needed.
Nice.
They're
Did
not,
you
like,
have to
influenced.
train the VA, or did they come already working for a different real estate firm?
So
The,
yeah, so the first VA I actually had when I first started Good Vibes Real Estate Solutions, he came on board. I'm like, I'll have this guy make calls, and of course that didn't work. But like I could tell he was smart. He had a good work ethic. So I kept him. Like in the beginning, like I had him 40 hours a week. I didn't know what to do with him, but the pay, like, okay, no, let's figure this out. So I'm sure in the beginning he was bored. I just kept figuring out, okay, what else can I do? What else can he do? What else can he do? And kept adding things to it. And then by the time I got really into the property management, I just kept putting things on his plate and taught him as we went. The other VA kind of came out of necessity. It was about 2 years ago. I'm sitting there and I'm like doing all this stuff I don't want to do with property management. A lot of things I don't want to do in general. And I got frustrated. I just went on Upwork and I'm like, personal assistant needed full-time, boom. Like that was kind of it. Like I need a full-time assistant. And a couple people applied, and this one gal, Esmeralda, she, interviewed well, and I started using her. And of course, management took a lot of my time, so I kept using her more and more and more in management. Well, finally, it's like, hey, Paul, we got all these people. I got this gal. She's doing all this stuff. She's doing great. Integrate her in, and boom, we moved her completely to the property management piece.
awesome. All right. So how about what types of real estate properties do you specialize in, and what regions or markets are you targeting right now?
Got you. So for buy and holds, Mercer County, New Jersey, Trenton, Hamilton, Ewing, mostly single families. We have a couple of duplexes, triplexes, that type of thing. Once you get to the triplexes, in New Jersey, the DCA gets involved, and you got to get a green card and all this other drama. But that's another story. So that's mostly what we're involved in. Is the single family is kind of a bulk of them, and the single families are nice because you can put a really nice house together and get a tenant that's there a long time because it's a house, right? It's a full house, and if you we don't put properties together in such a way that it's the bare minimum to get past the CO. We put granite in all our properties. We put new kitchens, new floors, new windows. We make a property nice, and that gives us the best choice of tenants because the people that have good credit and the people that have money are comparing your property to the other property, and they're like, "Wow, we want this one," and it really helps in getting good tenants.
You make homes.
You make a home for them.
Yes, exactly,
Right.
exactly.
Right. And some of the stuff you put in is to make it so it's more durable so you're not replacing it as frequently. You know, like a granite countertop's more durable than a laminate. You know,
Exactly.
and you buy
And,
a bit higher faucet or fixture, so it doesn't break as frequently. Because we've had that with ours where they break more frequently.
Yeah.
exactly. And, we normally don't put ceiling fans because they tend to break. We don't put dishwashers,
Right.
All right.
right? Because they're always breaking and they make a big mess if they break, right? So, it's okay. You got to wash your own dishes, but it is what it is.
Yeah, no,
um,
we get it. Not everybody
yeah,
needs a dishwasher.
And so it depends on the areas then.
Yeah.
Would you consider in different areas though you would add those amenities or
And better areas.
and not amenities?
potentially. We're not completely against it, but I know they're problematic when they break. Appliances are the bane of my existence anymore. Just with the amount of fridges and stoves and
Right.
just constantly something.
I know somebody that just put a brand new stove in for a tenant, and the tenant opened the stove to use it as a step stool and wanted a
Yeah.
new stove.
And then he wants
2
next
weeks
to
old.
broke it.
Wow.
Oh my
So
gosh.
I hear that one. I learn from other people's mistakes.
Yeah, definitely. They even made me in my rental put like a stove tipping device,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
like
okay.
children don't do that, and the stove tips over and
Yep.
falls on them. You know.
That's like a state
Yeah.
guide like that.
Requirement.
It's also before you get a CO, you're supposed to test that to make sure the tip plate's on.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
It's a safety thing,
Yeah.
which makes sense if you got
Yeah.
take great
Definitely.
clean on
True.
the tips,
Yeah.
anything to prevent injury.
Steve, tell us, about wholesale. That's like your bread and butter now, right?
So yeah, I wouldn't say it's my bread and butter. It's something I've been doing for a long time. So it's a bit of it supplements my rental income, right? So I've been doing it for a long time. I started with Jason. We were doing it for quite some time, and then transitioned over to rentals. And then I spent a lot of time getting the rental business where it getting the rental management where it needed to be. So I just kind of was doing wholesaling on the side for years. And then recently I partnered up with two other gentlemen, Chris and Mike, and we've joined forces and we're turning it up all over New Jersey right now. So we are just focusing on the entire state, but we are focusing on the eviction niche. So all the properties that all the leads that we're reaching out to anybody that files an eviction. You file an eviction, you're getting a call from us. And that's kind of the niche that we're really hammering into right now is evictions.
Okay. Put us on the list over here at C&J because we want to do a deal day. So you bring deals and we got buyers that got the cash. Let's join
Awesome.
forces.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
So what strategy right now in the wholesaling world do you feel is most effective for getting leads?
So, okay, that's a great question. And in my opinion, everybody is out there throwing a bunch of spaghetti against the wall, cold calling everyone, right? First, they were texting everybody until that became a cat and mouse game with the carriers, and it's almost impossible to do now. And you got to it's ridiculous. So texting kind of died, right? So the only thing left is cold calling. So people are hiring these VAs at like $2-3 an hour that are calling with absolutely no skill set and just calling everybody with no regard for what type of list it is. They're just they're like, let me get a triple line dialer, calling. Yes, you might get some deals, but I don't think that's the best way to do it. They said I focused on evictions. Let's just do evictions, and they're not easy to get, right? So it takes a lot of time, effort, and energy to get the leads. And then I have a cold caller that's actually pretty darn good, right? And we're constantly training her and getting her better. So we're making the call, and the thing is, she's not trying to call 500 people a day. We're getting right now about 60 to 70 prospects a day, which is leading to 1 or 2 leads per day, right? So it's not like this huge, ridiculous thing where we're just throwing a bunch of spaghetti against the wall. And now, she can answer starting to be able to answer people intelligently when they have questions about it, because by helping them through, there's one guy recently, he didn't even know when his trial date was. He's got this attorney, I don't even know when the trial is. Okay, cool. And you look right, oh, that's when your trial date is. Oh, thank you. Right. So I'm helping them and having how's it going with the eviction? And we can have those kind of conversations with people. So it's a little different, and it's a little bit of a niche. and then they can learn it. And, so that's kind of where we are now. Is focusing on evictions. And the other nice thing is we don't always need to get into the property, but it's an eviction. So there's no like, oh, well, let me come look at the property. Oh, you can't get in. The tenant won't, and it's not talking to us. The tenant won't let us in. Okay. So now I can negotiate a sight unseen deal, get it locked up. And then now they're just doing business with me up until they're able to get the tenant out, or otherwise the offer is obviously going to be a lot lower if we're taking it with a bad tenant in place, because we're buying the tenant as well.
Yeah. All right. I have one more question, and then
Absolutely.
anybody else does?
Yeah.
So how do you stay informed about market trends and changes, and what factors do you consider when evaluating those potential profits for those real estate deals?
Right. So the best way to keep on top of the market is by talking to people. I say it all the time. Real estate is not about the property, but it's about the people. Every buyer is a person. Every seller is a person. Every tenant is a person. So it's about dealing with people. And having those conversations with people is a phenomenal way to know what's going on, right? Like, oh, did you see that they just had this new thing that came up? Did you see this new rule about lead-based paint? What are you going to do about this lead-based paint drama, right? Like that type of thing. Cool. Like, how are your rentals going? How long is it taking you to get a rental turned over? At least in one particular small market. Like, I need to know. The best way to get data is by talking to people on the ground. And now that I'm focusing on the whole state, like, I need to expand who I'm talking to. Like, okay, well, who's the player in the Camden area now that I need to talk to that knows what's going on, what the actual rents are, and that type of thing. So my niche has kind of been rentals. I don't sell too many fix and flip deals, right? I focus mostly on rentals. I'm focused on evictions. So most of those are going to be rental properties, right? That's kind of, again, yes, some of them are potentially fix and flips, but they're really, I look at it from a cash flow perspective. Okay, great. In this area, okay, this is the rough area. People are going to want a higher level of cash flow. It's in a better area, might be willing to accept less because they may also get appreciation, whereas appreciation will happen in the other areas, but not as much. So it's really a question of, okay, will an investor be able to buy this property, get their money back out, because everybody wants to refinance to get their money back out. So will they be able to get their money back out, and will they cash flow? Right. And those are the two biggest things that they look at. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. I love how you're, strategically just going after the investors. I mean, those are the biggest players in the game anyways, right? So you got some more consistency over just doing one deal with one person. I love that strategy. But, one thing that I always get asked a ton is, oh, I've tried this for a month. I've tried this for 2 months. It's not working. So it's not for me. And it took me personally like 7 months to get my first deal. It just took, a bunch of grind. So tell us, like, how long did it take you to get your first deal? And for you to know that, like, I'm gonna do this,
The first deal I think was about 6 months, right? And that's like running around, putting up bandit signs. At the time, we weren't doing much cold calling or texting, right? That really wasn't a thing yet. It was really bandit signs, and it was mailers, right? We're sending out mailers, doing the bandit signs and that type of thing. And in the beginning, we did a lot of YouTube. YouTube was great in the beginning. Once we kind of got started, like, oh, wow. Like back in the day, you would be able to make a YouTube video and it would literally be at the top of Google in 2 seconds, like especially in a market like it didn't have a lot of competition, which is obviously no longer the case. So in the beginning, that was a great lead source. That being said, it takes a while. It's a grind, right? Like there's leads that don't come to fruition for 6 months, 12 months, 24 months, right? And it's a matter of continually going back and touching them. It's one of these things that builds. So the most important thing is consistency. Whatever marketing channel you're doing, you just need to go at it consistently. I see too many people that they're doing, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing probates, I'm doing all these probates, and they're doing it. Oh, wait, this other guru said I should do this, and then they switch gears and start doing that. Yeah. Oh, this guru said that, and then they switch gears. So that to me, there's a point at which you need to stop educating for a little while and just take action with what you got. Because there's so many different opinions on the way to go that I see these people that I talk to, and they're just constantly changing gears, and it's frustrating. It's frustrating. I mean, they're going to get some deals here and there, but they're never going to get to the point that it's consistent.
Right.
Consistency and persistency. You brought up something with gurus. You mentioned gurus. And I had this question I'm going to ask you because it's similar. Who are the one or two biggest mentors that you've had in your career in real estate that impacted you?
Gotcha. So that's a good question, right? I got to give Sean Terry credit. And you know, the biggest thing with him was, you know, his podcast and the way he, you know, he put out the mindset piece of it was phenomenal.
Right.
And then being able to go to his events and be around people doing the same thing. I went and did his intensive back in the day. And while the content was good for the intensive, right, the bigger thing was the people that I met, the people that were willing to pay that money and do that and are in the trenches and now being in relationship with them, right? So I have to give Sean Terry credit in that regard. I mean, I don't even know of how active he still is, to be quite honest with you. I'm sure he does some stuff here and there. But back in the day, you know, he was definitely a big influence for me. And then I would say another influence would be the local people that I met that were doing deals. You know, Matt Fairclough, Paul Margaritas, Rick Wright, all these guys are in Trenton locally doing deals. And just, okay, cool. These guys were a couple steps ahead of me. And like, that was a great to see them and be involved with them.
I love that. That's
But they're
great.
not gurus.
You know, no, they're not
No,
gurus.
but he said a guru or mentor.
Mentor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I know we've taken a bunch of your time.
You got anything
No
else?
worries.
No, no, that's about it. I mean, you know, if there's somebody new in the field that's just getting started, what's something that you would tell them? I know you said consistency, which is like huge. Just that alone is going to get them, like, you know, years in the future ahead of anyone else. So, but what's one topic that, or, you know, one advice that, one tip that you guys, you know, you would give to someone that's just starting?
So I'm gonna have to give you two, right?
Okay.
Oh,
First
Love
one,
it.
bonus.
First one is you don't need to see the whole staircase in order to take the first step. Just take the first step, right? I see too many people trying to get the entire staircase figured out and won't go on take that first step. So that's number one. Number two is you need to learn how to talk to people. You need to learn how to talk to people. So if you want to take a step, just call for sale by owners on Zillow and talk to them about selling their house, right? They already said they want to sell their house. Practice. Talk to them. Tell me about this. Tell me about that. Blah, 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 blah. And then, you know what? I got to talk to my wife and I'll get back to you. You never have to talk to them again, but now you just role play with somebody for free. Right? Just
100%.
talk to people,
yes.
right? Talk to people. It's not going to cost you a penny and you might get a deal out of it, but talk to people.
Is literally
Or
one
not.
of the first things I did was start calling, you know, FSBOs just to start, you know, getting practice, and then moved on to agents. And then that was just even much harder. But yeah, it was just like stepping stone. And that's great advice for sure. Where can everybody find you? Anyone that would want to reach out to you?
Cool. So I would say that the best way to reach out to me is my email. You can email us at info at goodvibesre.com. Info at goodvibesre.com.
re.com. Info at goodvibesre.com.
Got it.
Did you
There
get
you
that?
go.
Okay.
Okay. I got one more thing for you because you brought it up. Is what was one of the biggest fears or challenges that you had to overcome that might help somebody overcome their fear or challenge?
What was one of the biggest fears or challenges I had to overcome? I would say that my optimism, right? Sometimes my optimism held me back and kept me from really taking action. Like, oh yeah, it'll work out. Right. Oh, okay. Yeah, it'll be fine. Like it'll be fine. It'll work out. Right. That context sometimes is good, but for me, kind of kept me from putting in sometimes as much work as I should have been putting in. Right. It kind of held me back. Like, oh, I don't need to make an extra hour worth of calls today. It'll be okay. It'll work out. I'll get them tomorrow. Right. It led to some procrastination. Right. And that's why now, like today, like the way I got around it, like today, my context is whatever it takes, right? What am I doing today to move the needle? What am I doing today to move the needle to get further along? And I need to constantly look at that. Like, what am I doing to get stuff accomplished? And it doesn't necessarily have to be me doing it, but I need to empower the people under me so that they can get that needle to move. Right. So that was, I would say, one of the big things.
The biggest thing is
Optimism.
you have to get over you.
Optimism. Yeah, optimism and procrastination. Got it. Cool. Love it. info@goodvibesre.com.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Steve, thanks for coming on and talking.
Steve, we'll put you up on C&J here.
Yep.
So
You'll be on the link to the podcast. We'll show you that. And, this week is our beginner steps in real estate. So this is a great promo to it. Great podcast.
You're also posting one in Pennsylvania, right? You're having a real estate up in PA?
Yeah, it's the same day as yours, but we're having one this Wednesday, the 31st at Bristol.
Okay. And where could they find that info in case they're in Pensy and they're looking at this and they want to attend?
BIBI, Better Investors for Better Investments. So better investors make better investments. BIBI Mastermind.
Okay.
BIBImastermind.com.
Okay. Awesome. Appreciate your time again, Steve. You have a great rest of your day.
Yes.
And we look forward to talking to you next time.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Tabitha.
Yeah.
Thanks.